Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this first webinar from the Office of Parent and Family Services. Very excited that you were part of this. I mean, it's a new experience for us all. So my name is Meredith Call, and I am the Director for Parent and Family Services. And I have some wonderful individuals that are here with me today to help walk you through this information related to finances and your students' education. I know that this is an area where there's a lot of questions and confusion at times. So I've got some great representatives to help us walk through everything that you need to know in order for you and your student to start off the fall semester on the right foot. So some of the individuals that I have in here with me today are Lisa Powell. She's representing the Office of Financial Aid. I have Jeremy Dixon here from our one-stop shop on campus, and as well as Heather McKnight, who is here from Undergraduate Scholarships. So they're going to be able to take some time throughout the presentation to answer your specific questions, again, to ensure that you're starting off on the right foot. Just want to walk through some general ways of how this presentation will work. We're going to start everything off by showing a quick presentation or video, so that walking you through some of the basics related to financial aid application, when distribution happens, how payments are taken, and things along those lines. After the presentation, our representatives that are here from those different offices will be able to take your individualized questions. The way we will be collecting those questions is there is a chat feature on the GoTo training session, and you're going to be typing in your questions versus verbally asking them. So just a few things on how the presentation will actually work, or how the system works. There should be a toolbar on the right-hand side of your screen. That toolbar will manually control all of the functions that you need for this particular chat. So if it is impeding your view at all, that orange arrow at the very top part of the toolbar will actually minimize the screen and move it over to the far right-hand side, so that way you can see everything that we're presenting. Then at the very bottom of that screen, though, is also that chat function. You may have to click the plus sign to the immediate left of chat in order to type in any of your questions or concerns that you have as we're going through the presentation. And we will be monitoring the chat throughout the entire time. Please note, though, that when you do submit any questions that you have, that everyone in the webinar will be able to actually see that information. So please be careful to not provide any personal or identifying information for yourself or your student. Try to keep your question as generalized as possible. Do not include any identifying information such as your student's UAB ID, Blazer ID, or their numbers or anything like that. We want to make sure that we are keeping this completely open and available to all. And then at the end of the session, as I said, we will sit here and go through and answer any questions that you have, and try to, but also be respectful of your time. And this will conclude no later than 12:30 this afternoon, Central Time today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get us started by starting the presentation. As we go through the presentation, if you do have any questions, please feel free to submit them via the chat, and we will answer them once we have finished the video.
Hi, my name is Lisa Powell, and I'm the Associate Director of the Financial Aid Office here at UAB. And today we wanted to share some information with you that will make the transition that your students are about to take this fall hopefully a little bit easier. So as we go through this, just take notes, and if there are things you have questions about, we're going to answer those questions after the webcast. So one thing I want to remind you of is that even though we're getting ready to start the 17-18 school year, very shortly after your student starts school, you're going to want to start thinking about the 18-19 school year. Remember that you do have to apply for federal financial aid each year, and that application will become available on October the 1st for the 18-19 school year. We really encourage families to file the FAFSA early. The website is just FAFSA.gov. It's the free application for federal student aid. That application becomes available October the 1st. The earlier you file, the more likely you are to be eligible for some of the limited dollar funds that we have. So I just want to encourage you to file early. Make a note, October 1st is when you'll be able to do that 18-19 FAFSA. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the financial aid award options that your student may have been offered. When you take a look at the My Financial Aid page in BlazerNet, it provides information on anything your student may still need to turn in for us to determine or to be able to disperse their federal aid. It also is where the student would go to accept any loan offers if they want to borrow federal education loans to help fund the cost of attendance. The award that we have offered is the maximum amount that the student's eligible to receive, but they may want to accept a smaller amount, and they can do that in BlazerNet. I also want to remind you that students can give parents guest access to BlazerNet to allow you to go in and see the information that they are seeing in there as well. Now, as far as federal financial aid options go, there are some students who do qualify for need-based grants. That's all based on the information that's provided on the FAFSA. So you may have a Pell Grant, and some of you may have a Pell Grant as well as a supplemental education grant on your award notification. That means that your student qualified for that need-based aid, again, completely based on the information provided on the FAFSA. There are also students who were offered federal work-study funds. Now, federal work-study is a limited dollar fund that we have, and so it's awarded on a first-come, first-served basis to students who let us know on the FAFSA that they were interested in having a work-study opportunity. It's a great way to earn some extra money, gives the students some good work experience. Most of the jobs are on-campus jobs, so transportation is not an issue. And students who work on campus are, of course, campus employees, and so we know that they're here primarily to go to school. And so we work with them according to their schedules. So there are some benefits to working on campus as opposed to working off campus. Work-study money is not money that's going to be applied to their account at the beginning of the semester. They actually earn those dollars as they work the hours that they work. The other thing that you're going to find on a financial aid award notification is that generally all students qualify for some type of federal student loans. Federal student loans are not credit-based. Repayment is deferred while the student's enrolled in school and for a 6-month period after they leave school. So there's no repayment right now. And also the eligibility that a student has is determined in part by their grade level. So let's talk a little bit about that eligibility. For freshmen who are dependent students, and typically if they're under the age of 24, they are considered dependent, the most they can borrow as a freshman is $5,500. If they're an independent student, meaning they're over the age of 24, or there are some other scenarios that make someone independent, like being married or being a veteran, then they can borrow some additional funds. They can borrow up to $9,500. And as you can see from the chart, as the student goes through school, the amount increases, although it increases slightly. There are no big increases in student loan dollars. A couple of other things to share with you about student loans. For the 17-18 school year, the origination fee on a student loan is a little over 1%. So if the student borrows $3,000, they're not actually going to receive $3,000. It'll be just a little bit less than that because of this origination fee. The origination fee is something that is taken off of the top of the loan before UAB ever gets the money, and it's used to help fund the cost of managing the student loan program. The interest rate for the 17-18 school year is a fixed interest rate. It's 4.45%. That is fixed for the life of the loan, so it's not going to change, although for 18-19, the interest rate on any loan obtained during that year would be different. Okay. Some other information about student loans. First-time borrowers do have to go to the website studentloans.gov and complete their loan entrance counseling and a master promissory note. It's a one-time thing. They'll not have to do that again as long as they're in school. This is what studentloans.gov looks like, and there's a special section for undergraduate students, and then there are the two components that I just mentioned, completing entrance counseling and then their master promissory note. Now, another option that you won't find in BlazerNet, because it's not something that we offer up front to families, is using federal parent loan money to help fund the cost of education. Parent loans are credit-based loans, so not everybody qualifies, although the credit criteria is not terribly rigid. For parent loans, unlike student loans, there is no annual limit. So the maximum eligibility is based on the estimated cost of attendance minus any other aid the student is receiving. So if the cost of attendance is $20,000 and the student has $5,000 in aid, then the parent loan could be for that other $15,000. If a parent is not approved, because again it's a credit-based loan, the student can request to borrow some additional loan funds. For first-year students, that additional amount is $4,000. And like student loans, there are origination fees on a PLUS loan. You notice the PLUS loan origination fee is a good bit higher than a student loan. It's 4.276%. And the interest rate is fixed at 7% for the life of the loan if you borrow during 17-18. One thing we always encourage folks to do is to use student loan money instead of parent loan money first. We have some parents who don't want their students to borrow. They want to borrow the money. You're really better off borrowing the student loan first, then filling in with the parent loan because the interest rate is lower and the origination fee is lower on those student loans. Okay. For a parent loan, unlike a student loan, repayment also begins 60 days after the loan is fully dispersed. Now, if you're interested in applying for a parent loan, you do that at studentloans.gov, that website that we were just taking a look at. But this time you're going to go to the parent borrower section of that website, and then the very first thing is to apply for the PLUS loan, and then you can complete the master promissory note for that loan as well. You notice in the top right-hand corner of the screen, there's a login. That's your federal student aid ID and password. It's the same information that you use to log in and complete the free application for federal student aid. One question we get a lot in August is, when does aid disperse to my student's account? Well, the earliest that a disbursement can be made is the first day of the semester. So no money is going to disperse prior to that day. Any aid that is ready to pay will start appearing as anticipated financial aid as soon as charges are posted to the student's account. If your student is receiving any outside scholarships from churches or civic organizations or anything like that, those are not going to post to the student's account until money is actually received by UAB. Also, if you're an employee of UAB and you receive the employee tuition assistance to help pay for your child's education, those funds generally don't post until after the first day of class. So don't panic if you don't see it there on the first day of the semester. Let me share with you some things that may be just helpful to remember going forward. Once a student gets financial aid, they have to do a little work to keep it. Students have to maintain what's called satisfactory academic progress. And what that means is they have to have at least a 2.0 GPA, and they have to complete 67% of the coursework they attempt. That completion rate is affected by things like withdrawing from class after the drop and add period ends, or not passing classes that the student is taking. If a student is not making satisfactory academic progress, then they're given a warning the first time around. They're actually given a second chance. There's no financial penalty or anything like that that's incurred. They're just given a warning that says, hey, you're not quite doing what you need to be doing. So they're given an opportunity to bring those grades up. If at the end of that warning semester the student is still not meeting those minimum standards, then they're going to be notified that they're no longer eligible for federal financial aid. That's an unfortunate situation and one we don't want to have happen. We know that sometimes there are extenuating circumstances that resulted in the student's inability to do well in class. Maybe there was a health issue or something like that. In those cases, there is an appeal process that exists, but it's a whole lot easier just to know going in, this is what I've got to do and to work to get there. And that way you don't have to worry about the appeal process, but just do know and make sure your students know that just because they get money doesn't mean they're guaranteed to keep it. They've got some obligations to meet as well. There is help available on campus. We have a great success center. It's the Vulcan Materials Academic Success Center, and they will work with students to help them obtain tutoring and study skills. So I really recommend if you have a student that's struggling to make sure they check in with the Success Center. All right, just a couple of things that may be helpful for you to know. If you ever want to take a look at either your own or your students' federal financial aid history, there's a website for that. It's nslds.ed.gov. It's the National Student Loan Data System. On UAB's website, we have a great resource called Financial Aid TV. They're very short videos that provide information about probably 60 or more topics related to financial aid. Easy to watch, quick to watch. It's a great thing to look at. Websites there on the screen. I would encourage you to use that resource. We also have our office website, just uab.edu/financial aid, that provides some great information. If you want more information on federal education loans, interest rates, things like that, studentaid.ed.gov is the place to go. That's also the resource for anything related to federal student aid, any questions you have. That's the website maintained by the Department of Education. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Jeremy.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Dixon. I'm the Director of One Stop Student Services, and I'm going to kind of go over some payment options that are available to you as a student in the fall semester and spring semesters as well. Now that Lisa has covered financial aid, let's kind of see how that may play a factor in you making a payment towards your balance. We have two different payment options for you to choose from. One is a 100% payment, a traditional plan, and one is a payment plan that divides it up into three different separate payments over the course of the semester. Let's cover the traditional payment plan first, and that is where you may basically pay 100% of your balance that is due a week before classes start. If you were to fail to make this payment, or if you failed to pay 100% of the balance at the first payment deadline, then you actually would be automatically enrolled in the other payment plan, which divides it into three separate payments over the course of a semester. And when that happens, a $25 enrollment fee is charged to the student account for taking advantage of that option. If a student is receiving financial aid, like Lisa covered a little while ago, that financial aid will be factored into the account balance if all the requirements have been satisfied and if the student has already accepted the aid in BlazerNet. And if they have done all that, then it will be marked as anticipated financial aid in the student account. The other option is the Blazer Flex plan, which actually takes your account balance and divides it into three separate payments over 3 months' time in the semester. That is a $25 enrollment fee, like I said in the previous slide, to take advantage of this option. And the payments are designed to be about a month apart and end before registration begins for the following semester. So if the student fails to pay their entire balance by the final payment deadline, then a registration hold will be placed, preventing them from registering for the next semester. Also, if a student misses a payment deadline, then a $50 charge is placed for each deadline that is missed. And lastly, the way we get the balance for each of these deadlines is we take the overall account balance and divide it over the remaining number of deadlines in that payment period. So we'll actually go into more detail regarding this a little bit later. But basically, if you owe $6,000 and a $4,000 payment is made at the first payment deadline, then $1,000 is what is owed for the remaining two deadlines for a total of $2,000. Now, there are a few frequently asked questions that I would like to cover, and one of those is, since the first payment is due 7 days prior to the beginning of classes, will financial aid be applied earlier to my account? And the answer is yes. It will if, again, you have satisfied all the requirements and you've accepted your aid before the first payment deadline. In fact, we recommend that you have satisfied all the requirements and accepted your aid days before the first payment deadline so that you can see if there was anything missing that you may have overlooked. Because if you've satisfied all the requirements and you've accepted your aid, then you'll see it listed as anticipated financial aid in the student account, and you will see it factored into what is owed at the first payment deadline or at each subsequent payment deadline if you're taking advantage of the Blazer Flex plan. The actual processing of any student refund will be done during the first week of classes. So like Lisa was saying earlier, your aid will be dispersed on the first day of class, and at that point, refunds will be issued, and it usually usually takes about 3 to 5 business days before those refunds are received. So you may expect those later on in the week after classes have started. This kind of goes the same for students receiving external funding, such as PACT or veterans benefits, or any scholarships that the university may have awarded. Those will all be listed as anticipated if the funds have been received and if you've cleared all the requirements for those as well. Another frequently asked question is, how are the payments amounts calculated for each deadline in the Flex Plan? We briefly went over that a while ago, but I wanted to show you an example of how they are calculated because they're based on the number of payment deadlines remaining. In this example, you will see that the term charges are $4,905, and term credits or payments toward the account is $3,216. And that could be in the form of financial aid, a scholarship, or if a check was written or a debit card payment was made. Any of that would all be reflected the same way. So basically, $3,216 of payment has been made, leaving with a final balance right now of $1,689. And this is all done before the first payment deadline. As you'll see below, the Blazer Flex Plan calculates that your first payment has already been made. So really, all that's left to pay is $844.50 at the remaining 2 deadlines. Basically, that's just $1,689 divided by 2. And if you decide you want to take advantage of the traditional payment plan, then you just make a payment of $1,689 at the first payment deadline. A way to know what you owe and when is by looking at the different payment deadlines we have posted on academic calendar or on our website, uab.edu/when-to-pay. These deadlines that you see on the screen show you the first payment due, second payment due, and third payment due for each semester if you're taking advantage of the Blazer Flex Plan. The first payment due, you'll see at the very bottom of that, says students utilizing the traditional payment plan will make their 100% payment on that first payment deadline. So that's where you would actually pay your entire account balance if you chose not to participate in the Blazer Flex Plan. And again, these deadlines are all posted on the academic calendar, or an easy website for you to go to would be uab.edu/when-to-pay. One other thing I would want to make you aware of is another program that is offered for students that are receiving financial aid, and that's something called Bucks for Books. It allows students to utilize their financial aid refund to purchase books before the first day of classes. So if you are an undergraduate student, and it's only available to undergraduates, with an account credit of $50 or more, owed $50 or more due to an excess in anticipated financial aid, then these funds up to $500 will be available in Blazer Bucks for the student to take advantage of this fall to buy books at Barnes & Noble. Let's take a look at a quick example. Let's say that your total balance due is $7,308, but your anticipated financial aid is $8,300. Well, that means that you have an excess of $992 in financial aid. So $500 of that will be added to Blazer Bucks for you to use to purchase books at Barnes & Noble roughly the Wednesday before classes start. The remainder of that, the $492, will be issued to the student in the form of a refund. And this happens automatically. The student doesn't have to do anything. Again, it happens automatically, and all the student has to do is opt out if they choose not to participate in this. So they can go to uab.edu/books and choose the opt-out option to not participate in this if they choose not to. Again, this is only available to students who are receiving an excess amount of financial aid and are anticipating a refund. Now, there probably have questions for many of us, and we'll answer some questions in a little bit, but if you want to get in touch with us, you can email the One Stop at onestop@uab.edu. If you have questions about scholarships, that's their email address as well. It's pretty simple, scholarships@uab.edu. Financial aid office is finaid@uab.edu, and all of our campus offices are typically open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and sometimes we have extended hours during the first week of classes to accommodate the influx of students as well. So thank you for listening to us, and we hope this answers many of your questions.
Excellent. Well, at this point, what we want to do is take an opportunity to then now start to answer any questions that you all may have relating to the presentation and information that they were sharing, or to expand upon anything that is out there. All right, so the first one that I'm seeing out there is, when does PACT payments disperse, and do I need to fill out a form for PACT?
PACT payments typically disperse right around the same time that financial aid does. However, if we know ahead of time, which we typically do, that you're receiving PACT payments, those funds will be credited to your account and be listed as anticipated funds as well. Typically, PACT is something that is sent out to our student accounting office, and it's pretty much done pretty seamlessly. You don't have to do much with them. They just match up your student with what's on their list, and it pretty much gets added. So it's a pretty seamless process. You can contact the PACT office just to make sure that they're sending it out. But other than that, I'm not heard of anything else that the student needs to do or the parent needs to do for us to receive notification that you're receiving those PACT funds.
Another question that just popped up is, can I use electronic funds to transfer, electronic funds transfer, to pay student bills if student loans are not being used?
Right now, there's not a e-check option. So if a student wants to pay electronically, they would have to use a credit card or debit card in the student account section in BlazerNet, or the parent guest access. They'd have to use a credit card or debit card there as well. But other than that, there's really not a wire transfer or an e-check transfer option right now.
We'll go back in a few minutes and talk a little bit about the parent guest access and how you can make payments through that process as well, because that's different than your student. You're still using the same information, but I want to make sure we fully clarify how the parent guest access works. Next question that we have out there is, the amount available for seniors is $7,500. Was that for the semester or the year? I believe that they're referring back to,
if you're referring to the federal education loans, that's an amount for the year. So typically it's divided evenly between fall and spring semesters. For some students whose program lasts the entire 12 months, we generally go ahead and divide it out among 3 semesters, fall, spring, summer. And then if the student only wants to use it for fall and spring, they can just let our office know and we can make that adjustment.
there's a question about, is there a way to see a balance sheet to know what the total charges are compared to all the scholarships and loans that have been awarded?
There is a account summary by term where you can see what all has been charged to the student account, and then if aid has been authorized, or let's say aid has already been accepted and fulfilled the requirements, you should see the aid reflected there. If the scholarship has been received, then you should also see the scholarship reflected there. There is not a balance sheet that shows you what potential scholarships would be and how they would impact the student account, because that would mean showing a lot of different scholarships, a lot of different factors there, and playing a lot of what-if scenarios. So really, we only factor in what has been received and what the student will be receiving once all those requirements have been fulfilled.
And you are able to see all that information again in the guest access as well once your student has granted you that information, so there's something you can log in and see individually as well. If a student has already accepted unsubsidized federal aid and now wants to decline, what steps need to be taken in order to do so?
Sure, that's easy. The student can email the financial aid office at finaid@uab.edu and just ask that the loan be canceled. Just make sure to include a Blazer ID or their B number so that we make sure we get the right student.
A new question is that if my student receives a Pell Grant and that grant is split into both semesters, or is that total grant used for the first semester?
No, Pell Grant funds are always split between fall and spring semester.
Okay, when is the deadline for students to apply for federal student loan for this school year?
Well, there's not a deadline per se, as long as you can essentially accept a student loan at any time during the school year. And as long as you do it before the last day of school, we can still process the loan. So there's not a deadline, but just keep in mind the money's not going to be here to help pay your account balance until you actually accept it and take care of the promissory note and that type of thing.
Here's one about scholarships. So my student was awarded the Engineering Excellence Scholarship. He accepted the scholarship and submitted his post-acceptance. It's reflected in his BSmart, but not in his federal his financial application on BlazerNet. When will they see that?
Great question. With departmental scholarships, they are processed after our ACT GPA-based scholarships. So you should see the ACT GPA-based now. Departmental scholarships should be posted. Our IT department is working on that now. They should be reflected within the next 2 weeks. So you should be able to see those within the next 2 weeks.
So well in time before the
Yes.
the first payment deadline or
Correct.
moving on to the other things. Here's a question that came in: Is the flex? This is a good one. Is the flex plan available for tuition only, or will it include housing as well?
It includes all charges. The flex plan covers all charges. It's basically all encompassing. It's basically just reflecting your entire account balance. It's going to split that up over 3 separate payments. So it's going to include housing, if you've signed up for housing, a meal plan, if you got a meal plan, tuition, and fees as well. So everything that's on the student account, it will divide it up over 3 different payments deadlines.
Here's an interesting one that I think all students would love to have happen. If a check was written for their tuition and the amount was maybe more than was due, will any extra funds that will those be credited towards the student account to be used towards the next semester?
No, the student pays more than what is due, or if they receive a check for more than what is due on the account balance, then that student will receive those funds back to them in the form of a refund, and actually will be given to the student in the form of a refund. So if you're expecting it to come back to you as a parent, you would have to work that out with the student to make sure they give it back to you. Good luck.
Here's one. How does one get, if they have had special circumstances that have occurred since they originally filed their FAFSA related to family situations, how do they submit a FAFSA special consideration form, or is there such?
Yeah, the financial aid office actually has a form for students and their parents to complete. You would just need to contact the office, either again by email, or you can call the office and request the form. It's very specific as to the types of documentation that the appeal committee would need to review. We only make adjustments when there's been a significant change in income, maybe because of a job change or because sometimes we've had students whose parents have divorced and the income doesn't reflect that single parent household. But there are some very specific instances when we make adjustments. Those are explained on the form, and all of the documentation that's needed for the appeal committee is also explained on the form.
There was another quick question about electronic funds transfer. Since we do not accept electronic funds transfer, we only use credit cards. Do I just pay by a personal check? The answer to that would just be yes.
Yes. You can actually, you can email the one stop at uab.edu, and we can get you the address for that. Unfortunately, I don't have it memorized, but it's very simple, and they can give it to you, and you need to mail it well in advance of the payment deadline so that it meets that deadline, and you're not penalized for it coming afterwards.
There is a question: is there an option for an auto pay to be using a direct charge to a credit card or debit card?
No, UAB does not store credit card or debit card information. Therefore, we do not do a auto draft from your account. So you'd have to make those payments as those payment deadlines occur.
The next question that popped up is the full amount on the summary by term account sheet, does that reflect the total amount that our student will owe, including not only tuition, but also room and board?
Yeah, that's actually including everything if the charges have been applied. So if your student is expected to be living on campus this semester and you do not see a housing charge just yet, it probably means that housing has not yet given you a room assignment, your student a room assignment. So it should include everything. And if it's missing something, feel free to contact our office and we can look into it. But more than likely, I've seen some housing charges posted, and I've seen some that are still awaiting their housing charge to post. And it's probably just because housing is still making room assignments at this time.
There is a question about student loans. Can you apply for student loans at any time throughout the academic year, or do you need to secure those before the school year begins?
No, you can apply for a student loan, as I said before, at any time during the school year, as long as you accept that loan before the last day of either the semester or the last day of the year. When I say the last day of the year, I'm assuming the student's going to be enrolled fall and spring. If you have a student that for some reason is only going to be enrolled in the fall and then they're not going to be here for the spring, it would have to be taken care of during the fall semester. And the student has to be enrolled. But you can do those at any time.
Here's another question about electronic funds, but this is a slightly different variation. Since UAB doesn't have electronic funding set up, how does outside agencies such as Georgia 529 Savings Account for College send the funds directly to the school to post to the student account?
They would just need to mail it, like mailing a check, and they would need to indicate who it is for, the student name, and it helps if like a student number or their Blazer ID is on that check or on the documentation provided with the check as well.
Still mailing it in. Please make sure that anytime you send in personalized check information from any entity that there is identifying information on there so we can correctly credit it to your student's account prior, especially to that payment deadline.
Yes.
Can the subsidized and unsubsidized loans be used to pay for the Blazer Flex Plan payments?
Yes. When a loan is dispersed, it will cover any charges that are on the student's account. So if that's a flex plan fee or any other type of fee, it would be used to cover those.
Okay, how will the students be refunded tuition extra funds? Is it through the one card or is it sent directly to them? I'm assuming that question is meaning by check.
Yeah, it's sent directly to them either through direct deposit, which they can sign up for in BlazerNet. If they visit the student profile page in BlazerNet, just to the right of their picture, there is a button that says Manage Direct Deposit. I would encourage all students to do that because that's the quickest and easiest way to get their refund. If they have not signed up for direct deposit, then a check will be mailed to the mailing address we have on file for them in BlazerNet.
In many cases, that mailing address is still, especially for our first year students, is still the home address. So that may be a shock to them if they're, or a benefit boon to you. The check may be mailed directly home. Here's a question about if a student is initially enrolled for 15 hours, but then drops to 12 credit hours, is their account then credited for those 3 credit hours?
Yes, it is credited for that. If a refund has already been issued, then if they drop hours, an additional refund will be issued as long as it's done before the drop add deadline. If they do it after the drop add deadline, it's considered a withdrawal, and they are still financially responsible for that class.
The thing to note is to make sure that your student stays within that drop add, as far as a refund, that they have to be within the drop add deadline. If it's post that deadline, then you will not get any type of refund back for those class credit hours. So that is a thing to note. Does the final bill sent to the student exclude the ACT scholarship?
Bills are actually not sent to the student. They're reflected online through BlazerNet. And if they're looking online, they should see the ACT GPA-based scholarship posted as anticipated prior to the first day of classes. So you will see your total charges, but then you'll see anticipated scholarships as well as anticipated federal aid that can help you meet that first payment deadline. As with federal aid, as Lisa mentioned before, the ACT GPA-based scholarships are divided equally between the fall and spring semesters. So whatever that annual amount was that was posted in their award letter, it will be divided equally between the fall and spring.
Wonderful. There was a question back to the 529 plans. If they were also mentioned that if the question was if originally told that I would just pay for the tuition and then request that amount from their out-of-state 529 plan to be sent to them. Is that accurate, or should the check be cut directly from their 529 plan to the university?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but if your 529 plan will simply pay for tuition, then they will just need to write a check for what the tuition cost is or send those funds over to UAB. If there's anything that was beyond, if they pay for anything beyond tuition, and you want that money refunded to you, it sounds like a conversation needs to be had with your 529 provider, because anything in excess of tuition that's paid to the student account is going to be issued back to the student, or in excess of their account balance, excuse me, it'll be issued back to the student. So I don't fully understand the question, but it sounds like a conversation with the 529 advisor needs to be had to fully understand what they're paying for and how to get them the information of what is owed.
So a couple of questions that popped up about the dining options, and we'll go back and cover those in just a minute, but I want to finish answering some of our financial aid scholarship questions that we have out there. There's a question about our UAB employee and their cost, the reduced cost tuition that they're awarded as a student of a UAB employee. If that doesn't show up by the first day of classes, do they have to pay the full amount and then receive a refund?
If it's not showing up before classes start, or especially the week before, the first payment deadline, I would contact benefits just to make sure that you fulfilled everything that needs to be done for those benefits to reflect on the student account. Sometimes you have to identify and authorize your dependent to receive those educational assistance funds. If for some reason it doesn't show up, you can pay the balance before or by the payment deadline, and you can be refunded whatever excess amount is on the account, or you can just wait and see what is owed after that. But you might get charged a $50 late fee for each payment deadline you miss, so that you run the risk of getting a $50 late fee while waiting on benefits to straighten out what's going on. So the easiest thing to do in that case is to contact benefits ahead of time to make sure everything is squared away and ready to go.
So here's another scholarships question. A student was awarded, they paid the deposit for housing, but then their student was awarded a scholarship that covers their housing their freshman year. Will that deposit then be refundable? If so, when will it be, how it will be refunded using direct deposit?
Okay. Great question. The $250 prepayment will be refunded by the student housing office. It will be applied to the student account, so it will pay any other charges that may be remaining. If the student has paid all charges by that time, then the $250 would be refunded to the student. Typically, student housing issues those, I want to say, 2 to 3 weeks, or within 2 to 3 weeks after classes start is when they reissued the prepayment back to the student's accounts.
And then the other question we received here is, my student received full tuition scholarship, but this amount does not reflect the amount of tuition for this particular term. Do they need to just contact the scholarships office or is that a financial?
It was, I'm sorry, for tuition.
Yes.
Tuition and fee scholarships, since it varies and students can continue to change their schedule until the last day of drop add, what happens is basically each semester, after the last day of drop add occurs, is when tuition and fee scholarships are adjusted. Again, because they can change their schedule, that's a moving number. So if your student has locked in basically their schedule, they will not be changing it. They can contact us at scholarships@uab.edu and we can go ahead and adjust that for them. But in general, they're not adjusted until after the drop add period ends.
Let me go ahead and answer a quick question on that. If for some reason that adjustment, if it is less than, if that's supposed to pay your entire account balance, before the first payment deadline or even the second and third, any adjustment afterwards, if that adjustment caused you to be enrolled in the Blazer Flex plan or to be charged a late fee, then those fees can be reversed if it's because of an adjustment, a scholarship adjustment after the fact. So we can work with you on that if that caused you to be charged a late fee or a Blazer Flex enrollment fee.
Things to keep in mind, what the scholarship, typically tuition fee scholarships don't pay are anything that are not academic fees, like the student athletic fee. And also if they're taking more than 15 credit hours, the tuition charges that are associated with those additional hours.
There's another question about a different scholarship, the Provost Technology Scholarship, rather. When does that disperse, and is that money going to directly be placed on their one card or to direct deposit?
The Provost Technology Scholarship disperses in the same way. Unfortunately, since no funds can be released prior to the first day of classes, the $1,000, that does disperse all in the fall semester. So the $1,000 will pay to the student account on the first day of classes. So it will be applied towards any other charges on the student account. So basically that can kind of free up money that maybe you were planning to spend on technology. You can then have that in hand, but the actual $1,000 scholarship will pay out on the first day of classes.
I know there was a previous question in there about how our dining services plans work and the meal plan costs. And I can pull up the website for dining. That may help us kind of walk you through some of this to describe exactly what the options are and how they all work. And we also have Jeremy here who is great at explaining this as well. I believe that it's.
I've seen a few questions come up regarding the refund as to whether or not you can have that added to your one card. And that refund is not added to your one card. Again, it's done through direct deposit to your banking account that you designate when you fill out the direct deposit information, or it's sent to you in the form of a check. The only time it's added to your one card is if you are participating in the Bucks for Books program, and then those funds are typically to be used at Barnes & Noble here on campus. They are Bucks for Books, Blazer Bucks. So actually those can be used anywhere that Blazer Bucks are received if they are not used for books.
In regards to the meal plan question, I'm going to quickly try to answer this one and then move over to, I saw a couple of other things. So there are two different pieces for our new incoming students. One is that they have the mandatory $225, that's going to pull the wrong information that I want. The mandatory $225 dining dollars that are options for them. Let's see, here we go for the fall semester. The other are for our on-campus, and that is going to be that $225 dining dollars is applied to any student's account regardless of if they're commuting or not. That is an option for them, so that way they have the ability to eat in any of our dining facilities on campus, including our Starbucks to Einstein's to everything else. For our students who are living on campus, they must choose from one of these first three options here, Blazer 1, 2, or 3. As you can see, the price on there is also the exact same for all three options. The difference between these three plans is the number of meals that they get per week and the dining dollar amount. The thing to understand is that when we say meal swipes, what we were referring to is the ability for students to eat in our all-you-can-eat dining facility, which is the Commons on the Green. So the meal swipes are the number of times that they can go into that particular facility and have their lunch, breakfast, or dinner, whichever they choose. For unlimited, they can go in there, obviously, as many times as they want. The $150 per semester basically equates out to approximately 10 meals per week that a student could go and use within the dining facility, specifically relating to our Commons on the Green, and the 7 meals per week is for, again, once per week, once per day, or however they want to break that down, to many times that they can go into the dining facility and have a meal. They can always go into the Commons on the Green outside of those numbers and pay using what are called dining dollars, cash, credit card, or anything else along those lines. The difference then is these meal plan dining dollars that are over here are what they can use at any of our other dining facilities on campus. So everything from Starbucks to Panera and Full Moon, Barbecue, anything along any of those other additional dining facilities that we have on campus, we'll be using these dining dollar amounts. And the thing to note is that this money here, the $450 to $350 or $25, that money does not roll over from semester to semester, but that $225 mandatory fee will roll from semester to semester if your student has any remaining excess funds. So it can get a little convoluted and complicated, but the big thing to pay attention to too is how much variety basically do you think your student wants in their dining options? Do they want to eat a lot in the same way they can? The dining facility of the Commons on the Green has new and differing menus every day for every meal, but it's still the same one location. Whereas the other ones, if you move further down, you can go to the different, any of the different dining facilities on campus using dining dollars.
All of those are requiring, or any student, like Meredith was saying, is required to pay a $225 dining fee. And all of that money can also be used as dining dollars at any of the on-campus locations as well. So that's $225 dining fee on top of the cost you see per semester there on the screen.
There is a mention that when they attended, going back to actually the financial aid and fees, at orientation, the cost of tuition had yet to be set. Had the cost per hour been set at this point in time?
And the answer to that is yes. And I think we actually have that website pulled up, or we can show you that in just a minute. That's when to pay.
We have it pulled up. I apologize. I've just got to find the right screen. Oh, wait, there it was. Here we go. Correct. Here we go.
So yeah, the cost per semester is going to be $347 if you're in a College of Arts and Sciences program, business, education, engineering. If you're in nursing or public health, it'll be $409 per semester hour. If you're out of state, you can see that those charges are different, $793 or $938, depending on what program you're enrolled in.
So, and again, those are per credit hour. So your student, in order to be a full-time student, has to have at least 12 credit hours, and then can go upwards from there. And so we do not do a flat fee structure here at UAB. So it is, if they take 12 credit hours, it would be different from a student who is taking, say, 14. Okay. There is a question on here about work study. And if a student indicated they were interested in work study, how do they find out if they were qualified? And then how would she apply, I'm assuming, for actual positions?
If a student is eligible for work study and we were able to award work study funds to that student, it will show up on their award notification in BlazerNet. As I mentioned earlier during the presentation, work study is a limited dollar fund, and we run out of money oftentimes before we run out of students who are interested in work study. So we do maintain a wait list in our office, and as we find out that there are students who are choosing not to use work study funds they were offered, we can then offer those funds to other students. Once you're offered work study, then it's up to you to find a position on campus. Work study jobs are pretty easy to find because most departments like having those work study students available to them. Hire a Blazer on the UAB website will list all of the jobs that we know of that are looking to hire a student. It gives you the contact information for that department, a little bit of a job description, and it's really then up to the student to find a position. We don't assign students to a work study position. So we want them to have an experience that they're interested in, and I don't want to put somebody who'd really like to be a lifeguard in the library. So, but that Hire a Blazer website is is a great place to find information about available work study positions.
Follow up with that a little bit too is if the student has been awarded work study, they'll see a dollar amount in BlazerNet as to what they were awarded, how much they were awarded. That is not money that will be added to as a credit to the account balance. That is money that the student has to earn over the course of a year by working an hourly job. So that's not money that will be, again, credit to the account balance. That's money that the student has to earn. They'll get that in the form of a paycheck, and they can then choose to do with that paycheck what they want. If they want to pay it towards their account balance, they're more than welcome to. If they want to use that to go see a movie, they can do that as well.
I'm surprised that this is the first time we've received a question about this, but we have, and so I want to make sure we answer. Is a military dependent who is living out of state, is there any way that they can apply for in-state tuition considerations?
If the student, or excuse me, if the dependent, if they were stationed here in Alabama, they could. If they're stationed out of state, they're more than welcome to apply for in-state residency. In fact, I would encourage them to, just to see what would happen. But because a lot of those things are done on a case-by-case basis as to whether or not to approve for in-state residency. Usually, if a student is coming to the state of Alabama for the intent to get an education, they cannot apply for in-state residency. There are some extenuating circumstances, and sometimes that does have to do with being in the military and being stationed somewhere. So I would encourage you to apply, but I can't tell you whether or not you would actually be granted in-state residency unless you were stationed here in the state of Alabama.
The website for that is uab.edu/in-state residency. It should take you directly to the webpage and the application.
And the application is also in BlazerNet under links and forms.
Try to make it as accessible in as many ways and opportunities as possible. There's a couple additional questions that popped up about the meal plan. Is there a reduced rate for students living on campus? Again, for our students living on campus, they have one of three choices they can choose for their meal plan options, and that are these top three options, and they are all at the same rate of $18.50 per semester. And that is an additional fee on top of tuition and room costs. So this will still, your students should have selected or will be automatically assigned. If you do not, if your student is living on campus and you have not already selected a meal plan, I believe the default is the $150 per semester option, is the default option that they will go to. The top three is specifically for our freshman only students who are living on campus. Again, regardless of their on-campus residency, there is going to be that mandatory $225 option that will be applied to all students. And then for our on-campus living students, it's this additional $18.50 for the semester. Jeremy, do you know the question is, what is the meal deadline for choosing a meal plan? Do you remember?
I don't remember specifically when the deadline is. I know it's really early in the semester. You can change, and you can even email OneCard or blazerbucks@uab.edu if you wish to change. You can typically change it when you select a meal plan. I think it's easy to drop down rather than go up. I'm not 100% sure on that, but typically they like to lock in the changes, I think, by the last day of drop ad.
I want to see you've got about 10 days or less than 10 days or so to make after classes start. So your student still has an opportunity to make some changes. So don't feel that you're locked into them for the entire semester. There was a last couple of quick questions I want to take. I do want to mention to everyone that this webinar we have been recording the webinar, and we will be posting it on the Parent and Family Services website later on this week. It will take us a little while to get it uploaded, but it is going to be uploaded to uab.edu/families. So if you missed any particular information or need to review this again, you have that opportunity. And then if a student does not qualify for financial aids, can he or she still enroll in work study?
Work study is a federal need-based program, so a student has to qualify for work study. But there are positions on campus that are not work study positions. Student employees can still work on campus without receiving work study funds. The difference is that the hiring department would pay 100% of the student's salary out of their own budget, whereas work study students receive a combination. The department pays a portion of their salary, and then a portion comes from the federal government fund for work study. But students can definitely work on campus under either program.
The students would know no difference. They would ultimately get a paycheck regardless. Right. It is just the question becomes, and where is the university getting the funding to pay for the paycheck? And then lastly, there was a question about adding dining dollars if your student happens to run out of the meal plan dining dollars. Yes, we can always add additional dining dollars. We are happy to take your money in any way, shape, form, or fashion that we can in order to make sure your student eats. That you can do that through through the dining website. There's actually an option on there for you or anyone else that would like to give them some extra money can add it directly to your student's card. And then this is going to be our last question of the day. it's about that it's $225. If your student is commuting, there is a flat fee of $225 that is going to be assessed to your student per semester. That is a required fee. That $225 can be used at any of our dining facilities on campus, whether it's the all-you-can-eat facility or a Starbucks, Panera, anything along those lines. And it all at that point works as a declining balance amount or a debited account, so that we will just continue to go through that money as a declining balance. So there isn't a set number of meals per week. They can choose to use it solely as getting Frappuccinos from Starbucks, so they can actually get lunch from our Full Moon Barbecue every Tuesday afternoon if that's how they choose to use it. It is up to them how they choose to use it. It's just within our specific dining facilities on campus. And with that, this has been a very wonderful, very first webinar for us. Thank you so much for participating. Again, I do want to respect your time, and it is 12:30. We've reached our hour limit, but this will be recorded. We will be placing this up on our website for review later on. If you have any additional questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to the Parent Family website office, which is at just families@uab.edu. We're happy to help in any way that you can, and we will see you all in a month when your student moves in. Have a great day.